House Speaker Kevin McCarthy tonight defending his decision to give thousands of hours of security footage of the January 6th attack on the Capitol exclusively to Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Most of the video never seen by the public. McCarthy telling the New York Times, quote, "They do belong to the American public. I think Sunshine lets everybody make their own judgment." But media watchers are concerned about how Carlson might handle the footage.
He's giving it to somebody who's been perhaps the chief propagator on Fox and one of the nation's leading propagators of conspiracy theories and baseless claims about what happened on January 6th.
Is this like every hour?
Carlson has downplayed the seriousness and danger of the January 6th insurrection and made false conspiratorial claims like this on his Fox show.
FBI operatives were organizing the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, according to government documents.
Top Democrats are furious over McCarthy's granting of the footage to Carlson. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer telling colleagues in a letter that it, quote, poses grave security risks to members of Congress and everyone who works on Capitol Hill. But in defending the move, McCarthy also told the Times that he had, quote, promised to release the footage. McCarthy did indeed promise to release the video as part of his contentious bid to become House Speaker. A GOP source tells CNN conservative Republican congressman and Trump supporter Matt Gaetz had specifically demanded the footage be released as a condition of supporting McCarthy's speakership bid, but that Gaetz did not demand that the footage be given to Tucker Carlson. That was decided later.
It's a sign of the speaker's precarious political situation, that he feels that he needs to do this, that he's trying to win over some of the hard right elements of his party while also holding power and holding on to the speakership.
We reached out to Tucker Carlson and to Fox News and asked how they plan to handle the January 6th footage. We haven't heard back. According to the New York Times, after Tucker Carlson does whatever he does with the January 6th footage, Kevin McCarthy has said he might make the footage more widely available, possibly to other media outlets. Wolf.
All right, we shall see. Thanks very much, Brian Todd, reporting for us. We're joined now by two former members of Congress who are now CNN political commentators, Republican Adam Kinzinger and Democrat Mondaire Jones. Adam, let me start with you. As someone who worked on the Select Committee investigating January 6th, the insurrection, what do you make of Speaker McCarthy outsourcing this video now, very sensitive video, thousands of hours, to Fox News?
Well, look, it's one thing Fox News, which would have been wrong. It's another thing Tucker Carlson. Tucker has been the chief of the conspiracy theories. Yes, it poses a danger. Secondarily, this can feed conspiracy theories. So there is an old conspiracy theory where you see a rioter try to open a door, and it's a fire door. They're actually difficult to open. And he looks up and gets off camera direction from somebody who had opened a fire door, and then he opens the door because they told him how to do it. That turned into a conspiracy, by the way, that actually he's looking up at some control panel or at some camera where there's some officer at a control panel that then buzzed him in. Completely garbage, completely untrue. But that's what you can do when you selectively take pieces of this video. So I either expect Tucker Carlson to selectively take pieces that you can make up questions with it, because it's always just asking questions. Or secondarily, if you don't hear anything from him, of course, it proves that it is exactly what everybody knows January 6th was.
Mondaire, McCarthy said these tapes, and I'm quoting him now, belong to the American public. Is the American public going to get an objective look at these tapes from Tucker Carlson?
Certainly not. And in fact, the New York Times reported recently that according to the Dominion lawsuit, that voting machine lawsuit, that Tucker Carlson was sending text messages in which he raised serious doubts about the truthfulness of people like Rudy Giuliani and others who were raising baseless claims about the election in 2020. We also know that this is someone who immediately after January 6th took place, pivoted to conspiracy theories like Antifa caused it and so many other, again, patently false, theories about what caused it. So this is not someone who has an interest in telling the truth. This is someone who is an extension of the Republican Party's propaganda machine when it comes to January 6th, and we should expect nothing else coming from this guy than that.
Adam, are there political risks for this move? Political risks that this move potentially gets for McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, he's got his internal political risks, so I don't think this will take him down because, again, I mean, basically everybody voted for McCarthy. And one of the issues with the moderates and so-called moderates is the GOP, of which I was one, is, you know, a lot of the times you like to work as a team. They don't really want to stand up and try to overthrow the speaker like the Freedom Club often does. So it's like a cumulative risk. So the more he does this, the more you're going to start seeing people within the so-called moderates outraged about it. Obviously, the American people have got to be looking at this, and short of just Tucker Carlson's audience, have got to be looking at this going, what in the world was he thinking? And let me say, it's going to be one of two things. Either he did make a promise to Tucker Carlson, or if, as the reporting suggests, it was just to release it, then Kevin McCarthy did this politically calculated to both garner favor with Tucker Carlson and or have him on speed dial. Because I'll tell you, behind the scenes, Kevin McCarthy, just about every meeting you're in with him, talks about somebody famous he talked to. And so now if he can have Tucker Carlson's ear, that'll impress a lot of Republicans when he's meeting with them.
Interesting. Mondare, what does it tell you that McCarthy has already been fundraising off of this decision to release these videotapes to Tucker Carlson?
Kevin McCarthy has gone full MAGA. To the extent anyone was under any illusion that Kevin would be able to be a Speaker of the House under this Republican majority and have some semblance of reasonableness or integrity, for that matter, then I think they've been disabused of that time and time again. You know, it was just a few weeks ago that Kevin McCarthy was doing interviews in which he said that he had not made certain concessions to Matt Gaetz and others who were denying him the speakership. And so, you know, here we learn that this was one of several things that he promised, and he's following through on that promise. He's doing it, by the way, to the detriment of the safety of hundreds of members of Congress and thousands of staff persons who work on the Hill, who nearly died on January 6th in 2021, and who now are going to see their lives put at risk again when people who are bad intentioned get access to footage that should not be made public about secret passageways and other things at the Capitol.